Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. Today we're going to kind of jump into the middle of a conversation that is a continuing conversation here at Southside High School among staff and students, and quite frankly, within the entire field of education. It really has to do with something which you probably read about in many of the newspapers about mindfulness and the role that mindfulness plays in the life of both instruction, classroom, and just in general in the lives of our students as they are beginning to emerge as adults. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to our guest today, and we're very lucky to have Nicole Noah, who is a social worker here at Southside and really is the mind behind mindfulness. So
that's a big title, thank you.
It is, okay, right. But and two students, a sophomore, Lucy Downing, thank you very much for doing, and a senior, soon to be a student at the University of North Carolina, Mary McCray. So I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about what is mindfulness and what is it, or how do you interpret it as a part of our life here at Southside?
I want to take one step back because I think that one of the things we really tried to do this year was to incorporate more social emotional learning into our daily lives here at the high school. So that was really sort of the first piece of how we began to introduce mindfulness to the student population, really trying to connect more, understanding that we needed to focus, certainly on the academic component, but then also on the whole student and focus on what's happening for all of you, in your daily lives. And through that process of pushing into classrooms, having guest speakers, different kinds of presentations, we also brought into the high school the concept of learning to be a mindful person, learning how to be present in the moment, on purpose, without judgment, accepting sort of our reality for what it is and understanding how we can kind of work through that. We've been very fortunate to have staff development trainings on that. We've been very fortunate to incorporate some mindful mornings on Tranquil Tuesday mornings, where we invited students and staff to participate in mindful exercises. In addition to that, we also brought through some PSA announcements through the morning news programs, an understanding of some things that kids could incorporate.
Yeah, I know, you've become a TV star all of a sudden, that's right.
A little bit, but my 5 minutes of fame, right?
Yeah.
But it's been a great tool in terms of introducing the concept, because what does it mean? And I think one of the most important messages we're trying to carry through is that this isn't something you try once and then you're done. It's something that we want people to incorporate into their daily lives. It's kind of like if you're working out and you want to exercise, right? You keep exercising, and the more you exercise, the stronger you get. So we want to exercise the mind, practice it, incorporate it into your daily life so that you can become a more mindful person in your everyday. And what studies have shown is that helps you be more productive, helps you be a calmer, more relaxed person, helps with communication with others and how we relate to one another. So we really have taken some significant steps, and what I love is that kids are embracing it. We're looking to try to have a more positive and healthy growth mindset, where we're looking at sort of the journey of experiences versus the end result, which I think is a wonderful thing for us all to kind of learn to incorporate into our daily lives. And I know that even in the discussion before we started the show today, listening to how some of the students are learning about it as well has been a great thing for the school.
Yeah, matter of fact, I want to jump in right now, and just because you mentioned the word movement and athletics, and here we have a very good example of exactly what you were talking about. So tell me a little bit about mindfulness from your perspective. What do you see?
My perspective as an athlete of Southside varsity softball, I feel like it gets really stressful because you're on a varsity level and you have to be there and you have to be ready to play. You want to win because it's competitive. So and I also I work too, so it's it gets stressful. But when I'm in softball, you can't have your phones in my team and all that. So when we're in practice or in a game or whatever, you just you focus on the play in front of you. You focus on bases loaded, 1 out. The plays at home. You focus on that. You kind of forget about what's going on around you, and you just kind of really you have to make that play at home. And then when you're going up to bat and all that, you just kind of have to focus on watch the ball hit the bat, and you want to obviously score a run or whatever. And it's stressful, but at the same time it releases a lot. Me, softball, I've always loved softball. It's always been my biggest thing, and it helps me a lot with other stresses of schoolwork, working, going to college and all that, getting everything done for college. So it's a big stress reliever, and it helps me kind of focus on the present moment, and it's helped me in other situations, like focus on the present moment. Like, what am I going to do in this present moment? What is like around me, and what is around my presence and all that.
It's funny, when you talk about athletics and I guess the pressure, I really wasn't thinking of it in terms of pressure. I'm not sure exactly how that feels, but for you, feeling that pressure, what is it inside of you?
It helps me because like I like the adrenaline rush I get when, like, bases are loaded, 2 outs and you're up to bat and you're like, you have to hit this ball. I like that feeling because like
But if you don't?
I mean, we're a team. We lose as a team, we win as a team. That's what you have to remember at the end of the day. I know, like, sometimes I'll get hard on myself because it's like 2 outs, we need these runs in, and, I can hit a ball that someone catches or gets me out or whatever. And, like, you get hard on yourself, but then you realize, like, your team has your back, and you always have, like, your coaches there too, and you always have someone that's just like, don't worry about it. Like, my coaches this year have helped me so much, like, really focus, because last year I used to get really hard on myself and all that because, like, I wanted to be the best, like, I can be. I want to go to college playing softball. And, this year my new coaches were just kind of like, relax, like, you're a good player. You're going to go to college. You're going to play softball in college. And it's just nice knowing that, and nice having, like, a really good support system as my softball team.
It's funny, she used the word focus a lot, and it keeps cropping up in that conversation, and it's so important. You were talking about the moment.
Mm-hmm. I love what you just shared because it's such a healthy, when we talk about growth mindset, right, and the moment, it's such a healthy thing to say, look, you're part of this team. Let's talk about the experience and the effort and the journey, not whether you hit the ball and somebody caught it. So the moment, being present in that moment, is so essential. Very often what happens when we're dealing with a challenge or something that's happening, sometimes we worry about what might or might not happen, right? So that makes us anxious. Sometimes we dwell on maybe how things have turned out before, and it kind of gets us stuck, and maybe it makes us feel a little bit sad. So being able to kind of focus on the here and now, let's tackle what we know. Let's feel the experience, understand it, accept it without judgment, right? It may not be what we want it to be. It may not work out the way we want it. But if we can at least accept that circumstance, then we can begin to work through it in a healthy way. So I love that you have a coach that's fostering that kind of message, because really that's what we're looking for as a school community. We want to have it be sort of a seamless transition for all of us. So it's happening in an English class, it's happening on the baseball field, it's happening in the hallway, where we're all really learning as a school community and a district, because they're doing it at the lower levels too, but really how to adopt that and incorporate it into our daily lives. It's great.
I'm not going to ignore you, but we'll get to you in just a minute. But I want to follow up on one thing. Now, sometimes the intensity with which your mind actually gets involved in athletics really helps with the academics.
Yeah.
It pulls you away from a lot of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis and all of the subjects, but actually clears your mind in another way, I would think, and then allows you to refocus later on, I guess, on things when you have to kind of leave the softball field and return. Do you find that?
I find it like that, like, especially like in like games, I kind of forget about like my surroundings. I forget, like, I might have an essay due like in 2 days. I kind of forget about it and just kind of really, narrow in on playing softball and like being in this present moment, forgetting about like, did I get accepted to this college? Am I going here? Am I doing this? Like, what English homework do I have? Like, I usually forget about my surroundings and just really like narrow into my softball game. And then usually like if we win the game, like, I'll be all pumped up, and then when I get home, like, I have like, motivation. Well, I usually have motivation, but like extra motivation from, having that win in your hand. You're just like, yeah, like, we won, like, now let's do what I have to do, and just kind of have that like pumped up like mentality. Even when we lose though, like, I still have that like pumped up mentality, because it's like, we lost, we'll get them next time, because we always play teams twice, like home and away. So like we always have like that pumped up mentality. And like I said, my coaches, like, they always just like, who cares about losing? As long as we had fun, stress-free, like playing softball, that's the best part about playing softball.
And that does translate into the academic piece, because what you're learning is to focus on the experience, right? So now we have kids who can be that focused, and let's not focus necessarily on the grade. Let's focus on the experience of learning and the opportunity, whether you're writing a research paper or you've written task 1, or, right, look at that, right, or anything that might come up. You're focusing on the experience of learning the information and integrating it, and I think that's such a wonderful thing, being able to.
Well, what's interesting, listening to her description of softball,
Yeah.
it's in the moment. I can almost feel myself on the field as you describe it. So. So Lucy, it's your turn. So
Yeah.
I know sometimes being a sophomore at Southside seems like 100 miles away from the finish line senior. So where does it fit in your life? And tell me a little bit about you.
I'm kind of more of a newcomer to mindfulness. About 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a former student of Southside named Emily Herslin. She graduated in 2005, and she's now a mindfulness instructor. And she taught me a little bit about what it means to be mindful and how mindfulness can really benefit you. And since then, I've been thinking about the kind of aspects of being in the moment and accepting things without judgment when you're practicing mindfulness. And I think mindfulness probably fits into my life most relating to when I'm participating in the arts, as I'm more active in the art side of school. I write for the school's newspaper. I'm in art club, art honor society. And when I am working on a piece, it's kind of like I can really be in the moment because I am working, I'm doing something that's important to me, and it's a form of expression, and I can see what I'm thinking. And also when I'm working on something like that, something I like, I can view everything else around me as less important. Like kind of when you're in the thick of like a lot of homework or tests or assignments, it can be a lot and it can feel over your head. But when you take a step back and when you look at it from like a farther perspective, a vague perspective, you can see it for what it really is. Like that homework assignment, it seems like a big deal now, but I'll get it done, and then once it's over with, and it doesn't matter anymore. And I realize I don't need to stress about these things that I am stressing about, which is something that I couldn't really focus on before I had a grip on mindfulness. But now that I'm writing an article on Emily Herslin and I'm really exploring what it means to be mindful, and she told me that she started practicing mindfulness when she was given a book about it by her art teacher, Mr. Carrickton, when she had to deal with a large stressor in her life, which was chronic illness during high school. And that's a source of a lot of distress for obvious reasons. And she didn't have an adequate coping mechanism, but then mindfulness gave her that allowance of being able to focus on the moment and not pushing it aside, but confronting it and saying, why does this hurt me? What can I do to stop it? And instead of using all your effort to push away the pain, maybe just explore it and see, what can I do to reduce this? Why is this happening? And then looking at problems and exploring them really helps know how to fix them rather than just thinking that you can't fix them.
I think you just wrote that article. I mean, you have to go back to this recording, listen to yourself. It's remarkable the way you just described this. If I could just for a minute, I mean, you used the word stress a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know stress exists in athletics, and she was kind of talking about that, but when you talk about the arts, besides writing, what else are you involved in? Is there another medium that you use?
I use writing and painting and drawing. I'm
Really?
taking painting and drawing right now, and I'm going to be taking IB art next year.
Okay.
And I'm taking IB art because I know it's a lot of work, but it's something I'm really passionate about. And I don't know if I'm going to explore it outside of high school, but in the moment, it's something that helps me deal with all the other stresses of high school. And I know that going into full IB next year and senior year, I'm not in as much stress as I will be then. So I'm kind of trying to build a foundation now to help me deal with what I will be facing with all the assignments in IB.
So what does stress feel like? I mean, I don't know. And what exactly, I mean, what you were talking about, the medium, I guess you used the painting as your medium. Does that create stress? Very often people paint because they want to rid themselves of stress.
Mm-hmm. Painting, it can only create stress if you're pushing yourself too hard. And I found that last year I was holding myself up to really high expectations. And it's easier when you just let go and you create what you create. And in that way, art can really be freeing because you don't need to hold yourself up to expectations. you can realize that there can always be another layer of paint. If you're writing, there can always be another draft. Nothing is really final. And a lot of times in life, it seems like it is final, and that's what leads to a lot of stress when I think that a test grade is going to dictate my opportunities in life. I need to remember it's not important, it's a small detail. And in that way, I can really, what I've learned in art about not stressing about the first draft to what I'm doing in life and academics. I don't need to stress about a tiny detail. I can build upon it, I can fix it. It's not the end of the world because I'm still just young.
No, it's not, as a matter of fact. So, but you said something very interesting, which I think gets at the issue that many people feel with regard to stress. I know we look at it from the point of view of students sometimes, or athletes. I hadn't really thought of it in terms of artists, but I know what a writer feels like, because there's always a deadline. There's something that has to be done within a certain time frame. But you said, let go. So somewhere in mindfulness is the ability, and you were saying the same thing, letting yourself just go when you're standing up at the plate and you have three people on base in front of you. Oh my God, that's enough. How do you let go? I mean, is that what is behind the mindfulness that you guys are both using or focusing on? And is it what you were describing? Figuring out how to be in the moment and just...
I think it's a huge component of it. And one of the things I love, Lucy, about what you were sharing is that what I heard in your voice is that practicing mindfulness also helped you develop a sense of confidence and a sense of really feeling that you had the strength and being able to achieve what you wanted to achieve or move past something. Or so, yeah, learning how to kind of let things go. And
Yeah, but
just
what she
accept.
didn't say was she never lowered the standards.
No.
In other words, your standards are still there. You're still holding yourself up to a higher standard.
I'm learning how to
Correct.
learn how to deal with stress and manage things effectively so that I can achieve the things I want to achieve.
And by letting
that's-
go, she actually gets to another level.
Absolutely.
I'm putting words in your mouth now, but that's, that was the
true, it's
message,
true.
okay?
Yeah.
That's why I use the word confidence, because she can still achieve all of those things you want to achieve. The things you talked about, being in a full IB program and IB art and all of those things. Life is full of challenge. Life is full of stress. I wish there was a magic wand and we can wave it and nobody would have
Me
it.
too.
It's learning how to manage that stress and learning how to function in our daily lives in a healthy way, in a fulfilled way, in a confident way. And it sounds like you took a lot of what Emily shared with you, and she really is amazing, and you tried to incorporate that in your own experience, and you recognize the other thing, Lucy, is that you recognize that this is the beginning of a process, and you're going to continue to practice those skills as you move forward in your academics and as
Okay. I'm going to use your words, the beginning of the process. We have to end.
Okay.
I'm so disappointed because this was so great, talking to the two of you and listening to what you have to say.
Thank you.
So I really thank all three of you. But it is really the beginning of a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, really participate with your families. Join in that conversation. It really is worthwhile, and it really helps us with the balanced mind and balancing the entire experience here for our high school students and for our staff. So thanks very much for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye now. Good God, this was great.
Okay.
Thank you.